Hi everybody, today I'm going to show you a video that I made a little while back about making both butter and yogurt. In my case, I make it from milk that I separate into cream and skimmed milk, but if you don't have a source of non-homogenized milk that you can separate, please know that you can still do this. Go ahead and just purchase some cream and use whatever kind of milk you'd like, whether it's skimmed or whole or 2%, whatever, because it will work either way.
If you're going to use grocery store milk to make butter, you want to make sure that it is not homogenized, because homogenized milk means that the cream and the milk are all mixed together. The cream is broken down so finely in the homogenization process that it stays mixed and won't rise to the top. So you're going to have to find a source of non-homogenized milk, or you can just buy cream and make your own butter that way. I choose to do it like this without buying cream because we also make our own yogurt, and so I will take most of the cream off of the milk before making yogurt so I can make butter with that. And there's always some cream left, and then I make that, I use the remainder to make yogurt. And with a big family, we have we go through a lot of yogurt and obviously a lot of butter. So I make a lot at one time. Currently, we are not milking a cow. With our kitchen renovation, that has, if you don't have a place to clean your milking equipment, then it might not be a good idea to be milking a cow right now. So we are not milking a cow, and instead we buy our milk from a raw milk dairy that's nearby us. You can also buy milk from the grocery store and use that. So my milk looks like this, just like everybody else's milk. It's in a gallon jug. Because it's in a gallon jug and I don't typically take the time to pour it into some other kind of container to let the cream rise to the top, I use a little trick that I found in that I poke holes in the bottom of the plastic jug with a sharp knife, and I let it drain out into a pot and just watch the cream line go down. I don't know if you can possibly see the cream line there, but it's right around here. And so I just watch that cream line go down as the milk drains into the pot. And when when that cream line gets down to the bottom, I tighten the cap and pour all the cream into a blender. All right, let's get started. Yes, this tends to splatter somewhere, so you might want to be prepared with some rags and everything to clean up some mess. See, now it decided to go that way. And that one decided to go the opposite way, but once I get it down into the pot, I'm safe. Now, one thing you're going to want to make sure to do, because you can see that it's dripping so lightly, is unscrew your top. I usually take the lid completely off and then just put it back on lightly. Not too much though. Make sure it has some airflow. And then it starts spraying much more quickly. So you can see my cream line going down. Okay, when that cream line gets close to the bottom, I just tighten the lid back up, turn it upside down so that my cream is still sitting in the jug. Then I bring it over here to my blender and just loosen the lid and empty it all out in there. Now, as you can see, there's still a lot of cream sitting on the sides of the container here. So I put the lid back on and I just set it aside and let it sit on top of the lid like that. There's some others that I've already done. And just continue to let all that cream just flow to the bottom. And before I'm done, I will pour all of that cream from the bottom of those jugs into the blender to make butter with that too, because that's still a good bit of cream that will make excellent butter. Meanwhile, I have all of this skimmed milk sitting in a pot, ready to go on a burner. I actually went ahead and had started this process before I started videoing. So one way that I will show you that I make yogurt is in an Instant Pot. So I had already drained all of 2 gallons worth of skimmed milk into my Instant Pot and put it in here a little bit ago. Now all I'm gonna have to do is push the yogurt button, and I don't want it to be 8 hours right now. I want it to boil. So I'm gonna continue to push this until I see boil flashing. So the Instant Pot will get the yogurt heated up to basically pasteurize it. And it gets it to a high temperature, kills any bacteria in it, so that when you go and introduce the yogurt bacteria to it, the yogurt starter, culture, whatever you want to call it, then it will, there won't be any competing bacteria with the yogurt bacteria, so that the yogurt bacteria can just grow and turn your skimmed milk or whole milk or whatever you want to do into yogurt. So anyway, this process certainly takes a couple of hours, and we're just gonna let that boil while I'm over here making the butter and draining more cream and skimming more milk to make more yogurt and more butter. When I have a full container of, or a full blender of liquid cream, I guess, and in this case, it is about 60 ounces worth, I go ahead, stick the blender container on top of the blender machine and give it a whirl. This will take several minutes. It can vary just depending on the conditions of your cream, but I just turn it on and I let it go. And in this particular blender, a lot of times it stops after a couple of minutes, and sometimes I have to restart it. But sometimes if you're really observant, you can hear the blender motor kind of change and observe that's when the butter is finally coming together, all the little butter particles. And but you can always just open it up and see what it's looking like too. I'll show you what it looks like along the way. At about 2 minutes into it, you can see that I've got this really thick whipped cream. So it's coming along, but definitely not done yet. All right, now I've let it go for another 3 minutes, and it definitely looks more grainy, but it's not there yet. It's only been another minute, but I heard the motor sound differently, so let's see. Oh yeah, that is definitely changing into butter. Usually at this point, I just let it go another minute or so, and then we'll start straining it and all of that. Okay, all done. Now I'm gonna start straining it. I do wanna show you one little thing though, maybe a mistake that I made that I need to learn from in the future. When I started this, I only had my liquid up to 60 ounces, which my max liquid here on my blender is 64 ounces. And I thought I was gonna be okay, but I guess because it's thickening up and making butter, I did have a little bit of leaking going on, so it came out the top a little here and down onto the counter. Fortunately, not too much. Ran down the front a little bit there on the countertop. So I'll definitely have a little cleaning up to do. But, you know, in the future, I probably don't want to fill it all the way up to 60 ounces, maybe a little bit less. I'm just going to go ahead and directly strain this buttermilk out into a pot that I have set aside to feed to the pigs. Yes, I could put it in the fridge and use it for making pancakes or whatever, but this isn't true cultured buttermilk, and right now we aren't using that very much. So instead we're going to turn it into bacon and sausage, and it's going into this pot right here where I've already boiled a few dirty eggs for the pigs, and we'll go out to them later. I'm simply going to open this, and I do use a small strainer just start straining it in there. Small strainer catches whatever pieces of butter there are. And I'm just leaving it in, leaving the rest of it in the blender because I wash it in there. All right, that's pretty much it. Just gonna close the lid, dump those butter fragments back in there. And I'll scrape this little bit of stuff back into the blender. I do want every little bit of buttery goodness to get washed and put into the fridge for a future day. Now, since I don't have running water in my kitchen, I just fill up a container full of water and I'm gonna pour some in there just to wash it. This is a good amount of butter, so I'm filling it up pretty full. Stick the lid back on and I just run it for about 10 seconds and strain it again. Now, because this is mostly water, instead of the really skimmed milk that's going to the pigs, I'm just gonna strain it into a bowl here, and usually I take it out, I mean, you can't just dump it down the drain, but usually I take it outside and pour it onto one of my vegetable plants or a tree or something like that, just because I feel like it probably still has some good nutrition in it from the raw milk, and everything here in South Carolina generally needs some extra water in the summer. And hopefully you can see just how cloudy that is. So there's still definitely some skimmed milk left in there. And we're gonna continue washing it until the water is running clear. All right, so the water's now running much more clear. My next step is I'm going to be taking all of the butter here and dumping it into a bowl, and I'm going to finish it by just hand washing it myself. I usually only have to do that 1 or 2 times, but this way I can really make sure that it's gotten plenty clean. Still got a lot of butter on there to wipe off. But first, I'm just going to take out the blade, scrape it off. All right, set that aside. Dump all of this in there. Whoa, that was a big splash. And of course I scrape out all the butter that I can from the blender. And from the lid, every tiny little bit. Now, if you have a big family like me and a lot of leftover milk and try to do a lot of this processing at once, then you keep going and you add more, go ahead and add more cream to your blender and get all of that done. But I'm gonna stop here and I'll show you the rest of it after I get this washed. Look at all of that. I'm just gonna finish washing this in the bowl. Put some water in. Just stir it around some. Get the water to go through all of the butter to really get any buttermilk out. And as you can see, that water is pretty clear. Not completely, but pretty clear. So again, I'm gonna strain this into a bowl to go outside to water some plants. Whoop. Jeez, I'm making a mess this morning. But I literally just hold back the butter with a spatula and drain the water into the bowl. I'm gonna do that one more time. Now, you definitely want to use cold water when doing this, because of course the butter comes together better when it's cold. If you're using hot or warm water, then it's just gonna melt. You don't want that. Cold water helps it to be more firm, I don't like it too firm. Then it gets to be difficult to deal with. It just depends on what your climate's like in your home. Some people use ice. I don't usually, but every once in a while it feels just too soft. So I will put some ice in it. Today, I'm happy with the consistency, using just cold water. Okay, so that water's pretty clear. I'm gonna go ahead and strain it again, and then we'll salt it. So as I've been doing this, I've been hearing a little sound every once in a while, and I thought it was probably just something in the cabinet settling or something like that, a bowl or a jar or something. There's nobody at home, so I shouldn't be hearing much of anything but creaking in the walls of a house. Let me show you what I just found though. I don't know if you can see that right there in an empty spot where a dishwasher is going to be going, but that right there is a baby guinea, otherwise known as a Keat. We hatched several Keats out a couple of weeks ago, or last week, I don't know, I'm losing track of time. But they've been in a small brooder in our mud room, and evidently one of them got out without my knowledge and made its way up to the kitchen and is hiding where the dishwasher is. I'll have to get Nicholas to take care of that when he gets home. I could do it, but I don't want to get my hands all dirty right now while I'm making butter. All right, so now we want to salt our butter. The general rule is to use 1/2 of a teaspoon of salt to 2 cups of cream. Since I used 60 ounces of cream, that puts me at about a little over 1 3/4 teaspoon of salt. But I'm just gonna use 1 3/4 and go with it from there. Now, butter that you add salt to will last a little longer than butter that you have not salted. So keep that in mind. A lot of people like to have unsalted butter on hand, and that's a great thing to have on hand. You just might need to make sure you store it in your freezer sooner than butter that you've just left sitting in your refrigerator for a while. So just gonna sprinkle my salt on there. So now that I've salted it, I'm just gonna be mixing the salt in. And the salt helps to pull out some of the water that might still be left in your butter. So as I get a little bit of water in my bowl coming out of the salt, I just go ahead and strain that out. Having as little water in your butter as possible is ideal. It helps the butter to stay better in storage. There's not a whole lot in here today, so I'm just about done. Keep massaging it, kind of pressing that water out of there. All right, that's about it. So there's my butter. Now I just have to put it into some kind of container to store it in. I like to use just a regular silicone container that stores the butter in sticks. It just makes it easiest for us when we're baking and stuff. I don't always need a whole cup of butter or a 1/2 cup of butter, you know, and so we still have the little graduated lines on here that kind of mark a tablespoon. And that makes it easy for the kids when they're cooking, you know, to just cut off 2 tablespoons of butter or whatever. So all I'm gonna do here is just simply start pressing the butter into the trays. I use a small kitchen knife just to make sure it's really pushed in, scrape it off, put it into the next one. Sometimes you can get air pockets down in there, so I do try to really squish it down in there to get any air out and fill in all this empty space. So that 60 ounces of cream gave me almost, but not quite, 5 sticks of butter. So that's the process. It's nice and easy. Yes, it does take some time, but in the end, I'm gonna have a lot of butter. I don't know how much yet because I still have more cream to make. And I'm gonna have like 5 gallons worth of yogurt, and that's gonna be enough yogurt to last us for a good 2 weeks. And of course the butter won't last us that long, but it definitely helps to feed my family. So at the end of it all, I ended up with about 9.5 sticks of butter and 3 full pots of yogurt, or at least what will be yogurt. They're cooling down right now, and I will put the culture in as soon as they've cooled down to the right temperature, and then let them sit for a while. So to finish up with the making of the yogurt, when it's in the Instant Pot, I hit the boil button and it heats up until, to be honest, I don't know what temperature it heats it up to. It's supposed to be high enough for the pasteurization, and I let it heat up until it beeps at me telling me it's done. Then I take it out of the Instant Pot and let it cool down. Sometimes I just cool it down on the counter. Sometimes if I'm in a bigger hurry, I do something like this. This here is not the container from the Instant Pot, but it's the same principle. I take the Instant Pot out and I stick it in some container with cold water in it. Actually, that's warm water now. I need to drain that. But I stick it in there with cold water and I let it come down to temperature. So I usually have some kind of little candy thermometer in there telling me what the temperature is. And when it gets down to 110 degrees, I stick it back in the Instant Pot. I pour just a couple of tablespoons of whatever my the yogurt is that I have on hand. It's usually a yogurt that I've already previously made, but you can purchase your own culture and follow their instructions. You can even just go to the store and buy just regular plain yogurt that doesn't have any additives to it except for the bacteria. And I put the culture into the Instant Pot, mix it up, and then after that, all you have to do is go here to your yogurt button, turn it on till it says 8 hours, and let it go. That will hold the yogurt at a constant, like 110 degree temperature, which is great for incubating, and just that'll hold it for 8 hours. So 8 hours later, I'll open it up and have a nice thick yogurt ready to eat, except that we like to cool ours down. I use the same principle to also cook it on the stove. I fill this pot up full of the skimmed milk, heated it up to a temperature of 180 degrees, again using my little candy thermometer. And I did try to heat it up pretty gently because you can burn the milk in the pan, and I've even completely ruined it before, where the curds completely separated from the whey, and I was basically making cheese, which was not my intention. But generally, if you just heat it up gently, get it up to 180 degrees, and then turn it off. Again, you can let it sit on the counter or the stove or whatever for it to cool down. Or you put it into an ice bath in some kind of container and let it cool down to 110 like that. When I had a sink, I would generally just set my containers into the sink, my pots into the sink, fill the sink up with water and just let them cool down like that. And sometimes you can even pour ice in there if you want to hurry up the process. But since I have no running water in my kitchen, this is how I'm doing it right now. Matter of fact, usually with no running water, I've just let it sit for hours on the counter to cool down. But today I'm more in a hurry because I need to leave the house. So I'm cooling it down in the containers. All right, let's let that sit there and cool some more. In the end, in order to incubate my pots full of milk that has been cooled down to 110 degrees and had some yogurt culture poured into it, all I do is take a cooler here and line it with 2 old towels Now I have both pots nestled into the cooler. I'm just going to cover them up. Keep them nice and insulated. And close the cooler. And that will incubate it for the 8 hours that it needs. Most of the time I'll leave it for longer than 8 hours because it gets done whatever time of day it gets done. And then I'll let it sit overnight and repackage it the next morning. And meanwhile, I'm going to pour some of this water that's been used in this whole process onto my elderberry bushes. And all these chickens are hanging around, so I might have to go feed them too. Now I'm going to get to ladling. Yes, sometimes I make a mess doing this, which is why I still have this towel down. In a little bit, I'm just gonna pick it up and throw it in the washing machine. Thanks for watching. Have a great day. Say goodbye to the Keat. Goodbye, little guy. We'll get you put back into the brooder as soon as Nicholas gets home, or as soon as I'm done in the kitchen, whichever comes first.